So we could not do programming like this without our partners, and we have great partners that invest in Hamilton, otherwise known as economic development, and within their scope is the Hamilton Business Center. And it's my pleasure to welcome Kristen Hugenboss to say a few words from Hamilton Small Business Center to kick us off today.
Thanks so much, Greg, and happy Small Business Week to everybody. What an exciting week. On behalf of Economic Development, we're very thankful to be here and thankful to be part of this series. And Greg, thanks for your partnership and all that you do to support business across Hamilton. We're very thankful for that partnership because it is about community and how we build together. So as Greg has mentioned, my name is Kristen Hugenmoss, and I'm the coordinator with the Hamilton Business Center. The Hamilton Business Center is part of economic development, and we work together with our colleagues in economic development to support and foster small businesses as they start and grow. It's amazing to know that, kind of a fun fact for Hamilton, that there's well over 16,000 businesses that classify as small and medium-sized businesses, and we're thankful every year for the engagement that we have and the enthusiasm and community and the ways in which we get to interact with our business community. So if there's ever an opportunity where economic development or the business center, whether it be through consultation or workshops or many of our incentive programs to support your success and livelihood in Hamilton, please know that we're here to support you and that there's many resources that together we like to work with our partners at the Chamber to support and collaborate and deliver amazing opportunities to, again, grow and support business in Hamilton. So, Greg, very thankful to be here, thankful for all that you do. And thank you again on behalf of Economic Development and the Hamilton Business Center for this partnership opportunity. Really excited to hear today's discussion. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Kristen. And I think it's just an important aspect of this is talking about the fantastic ecosystem we have here in Hamilton to help support businesses, not just the Chamber Network, but also our friends at ECDev and all the great work that you guys do. And then also looking at, innovation factors. So again, depending on what industry you're working in and how you're trying to grow your business, there are a lot of opportunities. Listen, this is one of the easier ones for me to do an intro to because the Hamilton Chamber of Commerce uses Peninsula services to help support our business. And it's my pleasure to introduce Aziz for his presentation today. But I would just say, as someone who runs an organization and we are small but mighty team, we having a HR partner who is there to help support us and answer questions. And I think it is a skill when you say it's easy to say there's no dumb questions, or but sometimes you feel like you're asking a dumb question, and when you get professional impactful responses that help you feel like you're doing the right thing, especially occasionally in sensitive situations. It's a great project. So Aziz, it is my pleasure to pass the microphone to you. I'm going to turn my camera off and sit back and listen, and looking forward to the rest of the show. So over to you, my friend.
Thanks so much, Greg. I appreciate that warm introduction, and I am definitely looking forward to taking it away with the rest of the session. I appreciate the time, and a quick introduction on myself, folks. So for those of you that don't already know me, my name is Aziz. I am a senior consultant with Peninsula Canada. We primarily focus on helping small to medium businesses in their HR and health and safety. And we had a great pleasure of partnering up with the Hamilton Chamber, as Greg mentioned previously, to be that exact resource. There are no dumb questions, like Greg asked or mentioned, so feel free to reach out to me anytime if anything ever comes up. But yeah, we'll go ahead and take it away with the session. I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen here. Today's topic will be HR and OHS made simple, with the key phrase being documentation is king, presented to you by myself and Peninsula Canada here. Now, today's agenda will be a couple topics. We'll be discussing the importance of employment contracts in the small to medium business world, employment handbooks, documentation 101 when it comes to the Occupational Health and Safety Act, as well as some risks that we will get into later. And then we'll get into a little quick overview on how Peninsula can help you, and then we'll do a little Q&A at the end. I do want you folks to or to mention that there is a little Q&A button at the bottom of your screen, so you feel free to answer or ask those questions away, and we'll go ahead and address them at the end of the session there. Now, just a little quick disclaimer here. So the information contained to this presentation is general in nature and should not be considered legal consulting or any other professional advice. In all cases, you should consult with a professional familiar with your situation for advice concerning specific matters. Just had to say that, folks, because I am not an employment lawyer myself. Okay, great. So we'll go ahead and jump into importance of employment contracts. Now, there's a common stigma in my world around small business owners and even medium business owners where they think it's not necessarily needed to have employment contracts because of the size of their business and the chances of something happening to them is very slim. And I always tell my clients it's actually the opposite. It's actually even more important for a small business owner to implement contracts because if something were to happen, whether that be a constructive dismissal or a wrongful dismissal claim, that could be detrimental to your business, right? The average claim is about $20,000 to $40,000. In addition to that, spending the mental on that situation, taking time away from your business, spending financials on legal, all of that stuff can quickly add up and again can be detrimental for a small business owner. So I always recommend all my clients to 100% put employment contracts in place from the beginning. And if you don't already have them in place, that is totally okay. You can always implement them at any time as long as there's some consideration that's put in forth with that. But typically the things that we look into for employment contracts are things like the compensation. We like to note the hours and location of work, job title and duties, vacation time and pay. But a more important portion, for me at least, is the notice of termination. This is something that is constantly challenged in court, and the verbiage and legislation around that is a ever revolving door, right? And I always tell my clients, that again, there's a common stigma where you just think that the ESA comes into the picture because it's a common known rule. Well, if it's not in writing, it technically doesn't exist. So, for example, with a typical contract, you would want to cite the ESA and put whatever you would want to give to that employee when it comes to termination or severance, or you can follow the minimum, which is 1 week per year that they've worked for you. However, if again you don't have that in a contract properly cited with the employee sign off, then those employees can be technically categorized as common law. And in the employment law world, when you're dealing with common law, it just entitles them to a few more rights. So, for example, come severance or termination pay, you're actually looking at 2 to 6 weeks per year that they've worked for you. But in addition to that, if for whatever reason you're dealing with a wrongful dismissal or constructive dismissal case, and this employee is considered common law, they then will look at the Bardell factors with this employee as well, which they follow case law on. And the Bardell factors can be things like the economic status, the ability to find new employment, their age, and their length of service. And when you take these things into consideration, that's when you're left with a settlement that's almost 5 times what you should be paying, right? So again, if you get those contracts in from the beginning, it will allow you to follow the ESA and protect your business from the beginning, but at the same time, the employees also appreciate it from their side because you are completely black and white about the expectations and what their rights are, right? And it just makes everything a little more organized when it comes to that documentation piece. Now, a little funny case that well, not really a funny case, but a interesting one happened a couple months ago. There was actually a golf course where they hired a manager within they kind of recruited them into the company. And the manager was under the 3 month probationary clause, and they went ahead, fired them 2.5 months in, and they thought it was done from there, right? Well, the unfortunate thing is they didn't have 3 month probationary clause in an actual contract. So it technically didn't exist, right? So this employee caught wind of it, got coached by an employment lawyer, and they actually came after him with a wrongful dismissal case. And within that case, for 2.5 months of work, he got a $21,000 settlement. Now, you may think to yourself, wow, that is outrageous. And how can anybody get that amount of money for just 2.5 months of work? Well, there was a lot of things taken into consideration. For one, this employee being common law. Number two, following case law, looking at the Bardell factors, human rights issues, and of course, the fact that there wasn't a proper contract in place that cited the 3 month probationary clause. So these are all things that I would strongly recommend you putting in place now if you don't already. And taking that extra step of making sure it's legally vetted by an employment lawyer as well to ensure it's actually enforceable if push comes to shove. Excuse me, just getting a quick sip. And that's basically the importance of employment contracts. Now we'll move on to employment handbooks, which is also a foundational piece of documentation that you should have. If you don't already have it, definitely recommend implementing it now. This is the rule book for your business. This helps with the company's HR compliance and culture, clearly communicates the expectation, rights, and responsibilities for both the employer and the employees. But the key benefits really come from the legal protection, the clarity, the consistency, and potential conflict prevention, right? And this all dwindles down to how you want to discipline that employee, right? Let's say you have cameras within the vicinity, right? And you want to use that footage as evidence to show why you terminated that employee. Well, unless you have a CCTV policy that that employee has signed off on, you technically can't use that footage, right? So that's where those issues can come up from. Now, the other step as well, and I feel like I sound like a broken record here, but you also want to make sure your employment handbook policies are legally vetted as well, because we also find that employers will just throw whatever policies they can think of in there, but then when they actually need to enforce them, they cannot because they're not in accordance with the current legislation. I would say you want to have it, reviewed by a lawyer just to get that second opinion, but also make sure there's no room for interpretation. I'll give you guys another funny case. There was a situation with another company where they had a no smoking policy on company property. And this employee kept breaking this policy, so they're at their wits' end and they terminate the employee with cause. Now, this employee ended up coming after them with a wrongful dismissal, and he actually won the case and got a settlement. And the reason being was because in the verbiage it said thou should not smoke on company property instead of thou cannot. It was more of a suggestion than an actual implied rule, which left room for interpretation for that employee to then simply say, hey, I thought it was more of a suggestion for my overall well-being of health. I did not know that was going to lead to termination if I consistently broke this rule, right? And these are the things that you want to cover your base on in the event, again, push comes to shove. So we'll move on to health and safety. So there's a couple requirements that you have to look at depending on your employee count. Typically, businesses, the moment they have their first employee, they are expected to comply with occupational health and safety laws. They have to maintain some sort of a health and safety policy and assure that their workers are trained up, and then just have some sort of safety awareness training for the employees. These are things that you can typically grab from online third-party services, or you can onboard our services and we can help you out with that as well. And then when you get to that 5 employee threshold, that's when they expect you to have a more thorough health and safety program tailored to your actual environment and workplace. And in accordance to that, there are some mandatory trainings that each employee must comply with, including violence and harassment, WMIS, AODA, and then your occupational health and safety awareness, 4 steps and 5 steps for supervisors. Now, there is a common stigma within this world where a lot of people think it's okay to just have a general policy on those topics. And while that is what they do like to have, they also want a formal training done with the certifications to prove that your staff has been trained up on that material. When you're getting to the 10 to 15 employee threshold, that is when you want a health and safety representative trained and appointed by the workers. Usually, this is someone on the management team, and it's just to ensure that the health and safety practices are in check and are being practiced. When you get to that 25 employee threshold, that is when you'd like to establish a joint and health and safety committee with the certified members. And that is when you'll be conducting regular meetings, workplace inspections, and then, of course, documenting along the way. Now, there's also some additional key factors in your health and safety program. For example, you'd want to do your hazard reporting, your risk assessments, and your incident management. Now, the hazard reporting are things that come up on the day-to-day. So maybe something happens with the coffee machine, or maybe one of the tools or equipment breaks down. You want to make sure that that hazard is addressed and documented accordingly to mitigate your risk around that front. Risk assessments are predetermined. So these can be done once in a while or dependent on whether the processes change within your workplace. And then your incident management are just things related to injury, illnesses, and near misses. I always tell all my clients to just document everything. Even if there are small cuts or scrapes, I would still document it. You don't have to technically still claim it with WSIB, but it shows your due diligence, right? Because there has been instances in the past where, somebody has cut their finger, they did the old Joe method of duct taping it, led to infection, and then all of a sudden there was a whole can of worms open from there. The other instances we've seen is, nobody, business owners don't keep any records of their claims. And then they have an actual serious claim. And then when they look at their records, they see nothing leading up to that serious claim. And they look at them saying, hey, you've been in business for 10, 15 years and you're telling me there hasn't been one cut? And although you can still reject it, right, it'll cause them to raise an eyebrow and potentially a reason for investigation for another can of worms to be opened. So I always tell my clients again, just don't take the risk, document everything, show them that you're doing your due diligence, and you'll be in their good grace. Risk, penalties, and consequences. So a lot of the times, truthfully told, ladies and gentlemen, the Ministry of Labor is pretty easygoing with small businesses, right? You may get hit with a surprise blitz once in a while, and if you're non-compliant, they might hit you with a work order to fulfill by a certain time. However, that's not to say that there aren't serious implications if you don't follow the proper health and safety compliance procedures and meet those laws. For example, there can be penalties from WSIB. You could be looking at fines from the Ministry of Labor, potential jail time for repeated and willful violations, increased WSIB premiums, and of course, a reputational damage as well, because this is all public information as well, right? So I tell all my clients, don't take the risk. Do your health and safety. It's a legal requirement. Keep up to date. Try to update it on an annual basis. Try to get your employees trained up to date on their certifications. Make sure you have your employee buy-ins and they're actually following the health and safety practices, and you'll be prepared for the worst. Now, I do also want to mention a little tidbit of information before we go into how Peninsula can help. So with WSIB, there is fantastic rebate programs available as well for getting that golden stamp of approval with your program. There's actually a program called the WSIB Excellence Program. And if you want to learn more about it, feel free to reach out to me after the call. But it's a program designed to revamp your health and safety program and get rewarded with rebates up to $10,000 on an annual basis. So there are ways to also take advantage of your health and safety program to save you on cost, but also the end goal is just to make your people safe and avoid all those potential repercussions down the line. Now, how Peninsula can help. So Like I mentioned earlier, we are an HR and health and safety consultancy firm. Now, we focus on the small to medium space because we understand it doesn't make sense as a small business to have a specific HR or health and safety person because the capital needed to invest into those individuals just not there at the moment, right? So we're the median solution, right? We handle your documentation, so your contracts, your health and safety program, the policies that go along with it, and any additional documentation that you need to go with it as well. So full and final releases, termination letters, promotion letters, all that fun stuff. We give you a 24/7 support line. So in the event that you have HR or health and safety issues, you give us a call. We'll give you the exact solution within 8 seconds of calling us. And this is 365 days of the year. This can be anything related to disgruntled employees, terminations, onboardings. If you have a WSIB claim, we'll help you walk through it. We also give you a software. The software we give you because we have to, it's where we deliver our documentation, but there's also some additional features to help you out, like clock in, clock out systems. There can also be scheduling features. There are training modules as well with the certifications, like the ones I touched upon. We have over 40 available. And then we also have a service guarantee of legal protection. So we understand that you are using our advice and our documentation, so you better believe we're going to stand behind it. So in the event that you do find yourself in hot water related to a HR or health and safety legal claim, we will cover you up to $500,000 annually and 125K per case. And of course, there are some additional add-on features that you can take advantage of, but we can talk more about that if you are interested in hearing more about our services. But without further ado, I do appreciate you guys taking the time to listen on my little short webinar here. If any of you are interested again to reach out and have a complimentary consultation of your own, we do compliance checks where we see where you are at with your HR documentation, your health and safety, or if there are any concerns in general that you'd like to address. We do lead these sessions with education first. So my contact information is up on the board. Feel free to reach out to me anytime.